So now we get to transition to the next section of our time with the Lord, and it's led by the magnificent Benders. So would you please turn your eyes to Greg and Angela as they come up? I'm turning my teacher voice on sometimes. It's a teacher thing. That's funny. Turn your eyes to this way. Anyway, hi Greg. High five. I teach kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and fourth grade music. Only music. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, no like other things.
No like other things.
No English. What's up with that? Just sing in English. That's my point of view.
Good. So good. Hey, hi Heather. So we have a few of our regular families out. The Stolfers are spending time with family who is going out of town today, so they are seeing them off. And the Baileys, Lindsay's actually in Vegas, probably right now, which is where I'll be in, a few hours, like 5 or 6 or 7 hours. And I just feel like we need to be closer. And then Augie's birthday's today, hooray. So if you guys want to text over or send a little hello, a little shout. And then they have some family in town as well. So it's us, and I love when we have groups like this. It's our chance to like be intimate and close. And I was asking the Lord what He had in mind for us. You guys know we wrapped up Job. It was really hard to wrap up Job without you. Like seriously, like that was... Yeah. So it happened. We'll have to So it was all just like, swept up in a sweep of awesomeness. So I was asking the Lord about today, and it was a really interesting thing, His response. So I'll save that for a moment, and I just would love to hear from you all as to what you feel like God's doing in your life, or in particular, if there's something that you're just going, Lord, I just can't quite figure this thing out, whatever that thing is. And if you feel comfortable enough to share that. You don't have to get real specific, and you don't have to get into details, but I feel like that's kind of the question that the Lord is wanting to speak to, is those places in our lives where we just go, what the heck? So something God's doing in your life, or you're, what the heck? We're at a place where you really haven't heard from the Lord. So anybody want to share? Yay! Jamie, I just love that you're jumping in quick.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon.
We're glad to have you guys. Yay.
So excited to be here, Angela. Hi, everybody. Hi, Ann. Hi to some people who I don't dragging my husband into this.
I know. Super impressed.
He's like, what's going on? When is church starting? I'm like, honey, it started.
That was part of it. This is part of it.
Super excited to be here. We have not gone to church in months because my husband owns his own business and I own my own business, and he works and then he's working and I work and then I work and then he works, and that's what you do when you are small business owners.
Yeah, no doubt.
We love it, but I had a fantastic day at work yesterday. Just got a great group of girls who are helping me. Thanks to Angela. Lisa Johnston is helping, and
That's
Nikki,
good.
she's such a great girl. I know what good friends you are with her. So I just found myself fully enjoying my business and just relaxing and not being stressed out. And at the end of the day, we all opened a bottle of wine and had some wine at the end of the day. And
Dan's giving you the thumbs up over here, just in case you didn't see it. He's giving you the thumbs up.
And then came home last night, and our 2 boys are off skiing, and so we just had some time alone. And my husband called me over onto the couch, and we watched a movie, and it was a Christian movie, and it was such a nice message that was shared. And so that's what is happening.
Well, that's beautifully magical.
Yes, it is. It's
Being in your business and having joy and not feeling stressed out, like, is that not a miracle? Like, that's a miracle. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
having a beautiful evening together with your spouse, that's magical and amazing. So yay. We're excited to hear about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, so good. Okay, who else would like to share?
Without children, that sounds fun to me. As my kids are in here right now.
I love our kids.
Hi, everybody. So I just got a chance to hang out with my kids in Alabama. They are the new leaders of a synagogue in Birmingham. And it was just a real interesting time of being in my identity as a believer through Jesus and having an opportunity to be building bridges with this very Jewish community. And it was so interesting because these guys were in Israel at the same time, and I'm sitting on the front porch getting their texts about how beautiful Israel is and what they're experiencing. I'm like, oh, I just did that exact thing in the living room just now. You know? So it was just a really cool connection with you guys while I was there. And anyway, I don't even know why or how things come to me, but I just wanted to say that the little bit of gleaning that I got out of Job was really powerful for me while I was there. I got to use the premise of who is God, you know, over and over and over again in different conversations. You know, how does he reveal himself? What is it that we know for sure about him? And does it match what we hope is really true about God? You know, what is it that we know, and is that who we want? You know, is that the God that we want to know? Is that who we want him to be? And so there was a lot of conversations about God blessing the Jews because they obey him a lot. You know, because they obey, or if they don't obey, what happens? Mm-hmm. And so I was hearing that a lot, that theme a whole lot. And anyway, I don't even know the right transition, but when we were singing this last song about holy ground, I just felt like the Lord just said, yes, stand up. Stand up. It's you that makes that ground holy. My whole life, I always understood that the ground was holy because of God's presence. But for some reason today, in the way that we were singing and in the context of everything that I experienced in Birmingham and just the way that I was reading Job while I was there, I felt like God today said to me, what makes the ground holy is you in my image. And so stand up, be that. Don't be afraid, don't shrink back. Stand up and be my image. Make the ground holy. So that was...
Woo! That's so good. Thank you, Anne. Whew.
Yeah, so we had just a mind-bogglingly good time in Israel, and for me personally, there's a whole heap of things changed, and just some answers and some transformation, but just one of those things was just found a new just new love for the Word. I mean, I've been reading the Bible for like 45 years, more or less, and it just become kind of just a job, and just I was still reading it, but it was just a thing that I did, and and I just found in Israel it just kind of it's just kind of come alive again, and it was actually one of the things I actually
good.
There was a bunch of things I'd asked for in the course of the trip, and pretty much all of them came about, and that was one of them. It's I asked God, I want to find a new love for your Word, and it happened. So it was
wow. Cool. That is so great. How did that happen?
How did what happen?
A new love. What did that feel like? What was that experience like?
I think I think one of the things I realized in Israel is I had to take off all the filters that I was reading with. because I grew up in the church and I've had so much teaching and so there's so much in the way of what I'm reading. There's so much preconception, and well, I know this and I know that, and what they're really saying is this, and so it was really a case of just, okay, I've got to, it's kind of like I had to start from scratch. So just take off all the filters. I'm just going to read this, and what can I learn from it?
Yeah.
And once I came at it from that point of view, it's like I started learning stuff from it.
Yay!
Who'd have thunk? Yeah.
That's really good. Thanks, Adrian. What
You guys didn't see that because he was behind you. He just rolled his eyes at me. You know what I have to say about that, Greg? I love you. So to answer the second question you asked, is what the
heck?
What the heck? For me, it's my time, where I spend my time and where I'm allotting those precious moments of my life to be. That's kind of kicking my butt right now. It's like hardcore kicking my butt. And I keep finding things that I love and I enjoy. And I'm like, wait a second. Am I going to make time for this, or am I not going to make time for this? So I'm still in the midst of what that looks like. But yeah, that's me. That's my what the heck.
And what have you learned so far?
I've learned to place importance on things that give me life and things that, that's how I'm viewing it now. So with that context of does hanging out with this friend, is this giving me life, or is it like me ministering to them? And taking that into context, if I know if it gives me life, then I know that that's a really great thing and that's wonderful. And if I'm ministering to them, then I need to prepare myself for that, and with my energy. So if I'm ministering to someone, or if I'm kind of being a mentor to them, or whatever it is, even if it's to my family, I know I need to make sure that I'm getting life and energy elsewhere. So my life's kind of been out of balance, and so when I need to, and I am going through the process of making sure that balance is there, that not everything needs to give me energy and make me feel really great, but it can't be the other way around either. It can't be everything sucks from me, or takes my time in a good way, because then I'll be empty. So.
Well, and it's wisdom to know the difference between, I think that we often hit our heads against a rock thinking that a relationship's reciprocal, and it's not, and then we go, oh gosh, why is this relation, I want it to be reciprocal. We have that with family members a lot. I want this relationship to be both give and take, and it just isn't. It's just a whole lot of giving. And then we find ourselves frustrated and angry, bitter with people, and finding ourselves acting in ways that are passive aggressive, right? Because we haven't come to terms with the reality that we're dealing with. That's where bitterness tends to set in, when we have a false expectation of who someone is for us. So clarifying what kind of relationship this is, that's huge wisdom, I think, right? And then going, okay, how do I sow into this? Am I invited to sow into this? And what does that look like? And who does the Lord want to be for them and for me, now that I am no longer illusioned?
Yes.
I told my sister, I said, I have a disappointment in my life. That's my what the heck. We'll talk about that in a moment. And that disappointment, my sister said, you told me a couple years ago, and I'm like, really? Are you going to use my words against me? She goes, oh, I totally am. And she goes, you told me once that it's better to be disillusioned than illusioned.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because you are no longer illusioned. You're no longer living in the fantasy of what you want something to be. You are now dealing with reality as it is. And as painful as that is, at least now you're dealing with the reality that is. And so, yay, that's really, really good.
Yeah, for the process of it. I'll tell you if I ever get there. I'll tell you, yeah, if it ever
Super
happens.
good. That's
when
really
it
good.
happens.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So if anyone's going through that too, we'll have a chat.
What?
Talk about that. If anything, everyone's
Anyone
going
else?
through that same
Okay.
thing.
Good.
Anyway, thanks. Here you go, Greg.
I was grinning at you when I rolled my eyes, though.
Anybody else want to share something? Yep. Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, even though my eyes are rolling in the back of my head because I'm so jet lagged, I feel like I just wanted to share just the goodness of God that just I realized partway through the trip, near the beginning, like, oh my goodness, 22 years before I had just finished my time in Japan, was coming back and was able to go through Israel. And I had put a prayer request in the Wailing Wall, had gone and prayed there, and I was just desperate for wanting to be married. And I was single all that time, and just like, so I ended up putting a prayer in the wall saying that I wanted to be married and have a family. And so just this gratefulness just welled up in me, and just this, like, oh my goodness, because what we saw throughout was just God's promises for his people again and again, just being lived out. The prophecies are like daily being lived out in the people that are living there, and they're just so well aware of it that God really brought it to my awareness of gratefulness for what he'd done. And so just being able to go to that wall again and put some more prayer requests in there, and just knowing that God, what was the joke? What was it that
Oh, you can pray to God from anywhere, but in Israel it's a local call.
Yeah. The cool thing about is that the Holy of Holies, the wall for where the Holy of Holies was, it was right there. So again, I know God's there all the time, but there was just this sense in that song about Holy, Holy. There was just, I was like, wow. I mean, again, I get what you're saying too. It's like both and many ands, but there's just
both
a
and.
sense of God's holiness that was in that place. And just, it was, talk about mind exploding every day with new understanding of the scripture. And the same thing, I'm just like, okay, I've just got to start all over again. Got to go back and find out who God the Father, God the Holy Spirit, and God the Son, because the understanding coming from our forefathers and from the Jewish side of things, because we had this rabbi speaking it was like, okay, whoa, and there it is. Oh yeah. So I'm excited. It's just like, it reminded me of coming here, and we're like, okay, well, our mind is being blown all over again, which is such a good thing. It's such a good thing. So
Such a good thing. That's a beautiful compliment. So thank you. And I think that we wondered, like, you experienced his presence, so powerfully there, and you could, and you go, how is it that we can so easily experience his presence in certain places, and then we are awakening more and more to his presence within us, right?
Exactly.
And I honestly, I don't know what all the answers are, but I have one little thought, and that is that I think that the agreement of humanity is what manifests things. We know that over and over. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, Proverbs says, and we actually are co-creators and partners with God, and he said to have dominion here in the earth. And so I think that in these certain places around the world, there's this massive humanity agreement regarding God's presence there.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is a part of all of humanity's experience.
Yep.
Right, and so it's this. It almost is just as in the atmosphere, the permission
they speak
to.
it all the time.
Right?
It is spoken everywhere we would go. It was welcome home.
Right.
That was the first thing, like welcome home.
Welcome home.
So it's the setup of and it wasn't just our leaders, but just people would say, "Welcome home, you're home."
Right. Well, how cool would it be if we became so fully aware of that level of his
That we have it
holiness and his
wherever we-
presence in us?
Yeah.
Right? And that when people were around us, they would feel
That
welcome
same-
home.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I feel with Graham Cook. Like, he's my superhero in the
Yes.
faith. And literally, like, the first time I heard him, I remember, like, crying. That was, like, a big deal because I also was just pretty sure he was going to really be a horrible speaker. And guys know that my mom gave me a CD, and I was just like, oh, another terrible Christian speaker. But I will listen to it because I owe her everything. And it was just so powerful, and it changed my life. And I remember saying, I'm home. I'm home. He has the experience with God that I have been looking for all my life. He has the kind of intimacy and relationship that I've known was possible, but I just don't see it, average every day.
So beautiful.
So we're awakening to that very
Yeah.
thing, Anne, that you talked about, which is it is
Yeah.
His presence with us and in us, and that
that
partnership
makes it
of
holy.
life. That literally, and he speaks of that over and over and over again. In fact, one of my favorite passages in John 17, right before Jesus goes to the cross, and he says, Lord, I do this and I pray that the reason I do this is because they would know, all of humanity would know, that I am in you, you are in me, and they are with us, and they would know the intimacy that we have together. I am doing this not just to do this thing of removing the sin. I'm doing to open up a place of intimacy and relationship. Like, the removing of sin is just that's the precursor to the real deal of this intimacy with them together. And I just love that. I love that. So yay,
beautiful.
okay.
Yeah,
So
that's-
I'm going to take a moment. I'll share a little piece of one of mine, and then we'll share a couple more because I think Christy has something to say, and probably Heather does too. So when I was asking the Lord about today, he said, and this was very frustrating to me, every once in a while, not very often, he says on a Sunday, my presence is enough. And you would think that would be super good news for me. My presence is enough. But what it says to me is that people have an expectation of what I'm going to do with this time, and I need to meet that expectation. And he goes, this isn't about what you say, and I know that. And this isn't about preaching some awesome message that blows people's minds. He goes, my presence is enough. And the only person I've ever really heard speak about that publicly was Paul Young, who wrote The Shack, William Paul Young. And he spoke, and I've only seen him in person one time, and he said, I never ever prepare for a message. He goes around the world now and speaks, and he goes, I never prepare a message. And he goes, because God's presence in the moment is enough. And he goes, and my partnership with the Holy Spirit and the Father and the Son is enough in any moment to be exactly what he has for me to be in that moment. And I love that. And I also then have to resist the pressure of going, well, it has to be something, right? We have to have, and he literally I had nothing. And he does that every once in a while to me, just to keep me flexible. Just to keep me, just to go, will you say yes? Will you say yes to coming up here and going, I have no idea what's going to happen next. Your presence is enough. Who you want to be for each person is in this place. Our agreement that God is meeting us in every place that we're at is exactly what he's doing. And does it really matter what are you guys, nobody's going to even remember what anyone said, a year from now, typically. I will have to say I'm super complimented that lots of people do remember what the Lord says with me. But really, his presence being with us, moving and shifting and changing our perceptions, like the lenses that you talked about, that's the real deal. That's right how we change. So that's a little part of my piece in coming here today, was a part of me saying yes. Once again, being flexible and fluid and going, your heart for every single one of us to meet us in this place and do something magical. Thank you. I was going to send someone back to you. You did great. Awesome. Thank you. Jordan. Sorry, I'm trying to think of her name. So we just bless you, Jordan. She showed up and she was here for our kids, and I love that. I love that this is the first time I think we haven't had kids in ever. Have we had one other time ever? I know. Crazy. What? Well, we have Abraham. But
Abraham's a kid.
He is a kid.
He's a person too.
He is a person too.
Darby, though,
Yeah.
she's a teen.
She's a teen. So anyway, just blessing her. So anyway, you guys had something to share. So I'm feeling out
Yes.
this rhythm
Hold on.
and move of
Taylor,
what God's
too.
doing in this
She's
space.
feeling left out because I didn't mention her by name.
You are a teen, and Eli's a teen. There's teens everywhere. Okay. Did you have something, Christy? You raised your hand. Okay, excellent. You always have something God's doing. I love that. I love that about us.
Every week I have to, do I share? Do I not share?
Yes, share.
Anyways, I was, we have had it on our hearts to move down here for a long time. And, God finally opened that door, as everybody knows. And the really cool thing is that He's already shown how He has prepared, this place and this time for us. And moving into this house so randomly that came available and at the right moment, and what God has for us in a home living down here. Last Sunday, hanging out at our house afterwards, and just the beautiful time that was. And then
That was so fun.
Friday night, we hosted a dinner for my family for my sister's birthday, and God just opened up, a seam between heaven and earth, and for what happened in that time. I talked to my mom on Monday. I'll try and make this part brief, but had talked to my mom on Monday, and my dad has really been struggling with his health, and so her and I had a conversation of saying, we need to have the family together, probably initially without my dad, but then with my dad, and really discuss his status and what that next step looks like, and then also potentially his mental health. And so anyway, so we were all at our house and not thinking that we would really discuss that, but my dad brought up that he had looked at some homes for assisted living, and thinking that that's probably what needs to happen. He brought that, which was a shocking thing, and which then
that's a big deal.
It was huge, yeah. And then he, in the conversation, said, also, my doctor had mentioned to me that, asked me if I might be feeling depressed, that it's very common for people my age, and he goes, and I think I might be, which,
That's a big deal.
It was not ever something that he would have ever said, and for God to just show up, with my family at our, and then we had just this really beautiful time with the three of us siblings and my mom and my dad, of discussing what this looks like, what this time looks like, and then also discussing who he is, who his true identity is, because that's, just a struggle, for so many of us, of just dealing with shame and regret and hurt, and so God opened up time for communication with that, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and then it was just amazing. And so Taylor made the statement that evening. She goes, look at what happens in our house. Look at what we get to do in our house. And so I say all that to say, I know God planned for us to be here, and for us to have a space that people come to, and then there is something about that place. There's something about the house that we get to stand in and live in, and we get to host something really special for other people to come into. And so, and it's already happening. We were there a week, and it was happening. And so, really cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah. We're excited for what is to come. And so pretty much any Sunday after church, our house will be open for hanging out. So I'll just say that. Whether we're here or not, our house is open.
I love that.
So,
I love that. That's so
of
good.
course. Tonight, if anyone wants to hang out at our house afterwards, it's open.
Come on over. I love that. I love that we live this life together. Okay. Anyone else? That's so good. I forgot to put my watch on. Do you have your phone? I want to keep track. Okay, thanks. So, yes, you can help me with that. I want you to put up promises, would you? Big. The word promises. Which you can put promises up there if you want, specific ones. Thank you for sharing. That's super fun. I love hearing what God's doing. Anybody else have a what the heck besides Jocelyn? Like what it... Okay. That's okay. You can... one of my things that I'm processing with the Lord is when I think He's told me one thing and it looks different than what I thought He told me. Anybody have that ever happen to you? Like, yeah, right? He makes a promise over your marriage, He makes a promise over your life, He makes a promise over your finances, or you perceive that something's been said, or you're even looking at a scripture and claiming a scripture over your life, and you're going, I thought that this was going to head in this direction, and it heads in another direction. And then you're left, and sometimes there's unresolved questions about promises that God's made that are 5 years old, 10 years old, 5 minutes old, or 20 years old. And some of these are left hanging out there unresolved. These disappointments. So I want you to, if you would put up the word disappointments. And disappointments actually literally means missed appointment. So you thought there was an appointment and it got missed. It was it was a missed appointment. And all of us, when we have a missed appointment, when someone doesn't show up, we feel stood up. We feel devalued. We feel disappointed, right? That's the very word. Like, oh, I thought it was going to be this, and then it's sadness or grief. Some of us have grief, an unresolved pain or bitterness, frustration over disappointments regarding promises. And some of those promises might not just be with the Lord. Some of them might be with family members, with friends, and it hasn't ever been resolved. So in the moment, as we were all sharing, I'm hearing now with the Lord that He would like to resolve our disappointments, which would be super, super great for me. Because I think that grief over disappointments and perceived disappointments is what may interfere with us pursuing new promises. So I think the Lord wants to speak to us about that. Anybody got a thought? I mean, this is sharing Sunday apparently, so anyone have something they want to share? Something that struck your heart and you're like, yeah, this is me? Yeah. There's only 10 of us, or 12 of us. Like, there's only so much. We all got to share a couple times. So.
Well, with disappointment and, the feeling of, like, forget it. I'm not even going to hope for anything anymore. We were on, Sunday mornings. Did we start Sunday mornings at your house? Mm-hmm. So it was the night before that, on Saturday night, where I just had a total meltdown of feeling so disappointed. Like, it started with a disappointment with Dan that morphed into a total disappointment with God, and just like, I expect these things from you, God, to show up and you don't. You just don't show up. I don't know where you're at. I don't, people are hearing you and I don't hear you, and people are seeing things and I don't see things, and and total just disappointment in how God interacted with me. Mm-hmm. And that was the night before I went to my first Sunday morning, at your house for Sunday church, and then we did taboo cards that morning, and Elizabeth was the one that I partnered with, and the card at the top said membership, and the whole thing was about, like, you belong, you are in the club, you're not different, you're not an outcast, you're not whatever, and so she just reaffirmed, like, you are in God's club, and it just like, oh, okay, sometimes it just takes that one word, but I was so, even going Sunday morning, I was just so done with even trying to experience God, because I hadn't, or I didn't think I had, I didn't in the way that I thought I would. Mm-hmm. So.
And there was something in the level of what she shared that you felt his presence that actually spoke to that hurt. It wasn't just a thing and trying to apply it. It was more of like a real reality like that. Yeah. So how God interacts with me. And I know I'm writing with a pen, but you're going to be using, who else wants to comment? Because you're going to take the mic around if someone else comments. Thank you, Christy. That was super good.
I really like the way that you talked about it being a missed appointment and how it makes us feel stood up.
Thanks.
Had an expectation yesterday to see my son who lives here locally, and he just moved while I was gone, and I didn't even know he was planning on moving, much less that he did move. And so it was really a big deal to get to see his place. And we connected. He said, yes, come. And then before I could get there, he canceled on me. And I was like, I'm almost there. Can't you just wait 5 more minutes? And it was so disappointing. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like that feeling of a missed appointment when you had such a big expectation and such an important connection to make with another person. And so it feels like, wow, I don't think without that experience yesterday, I would have such a deep appreciation for what it means to have a missed appointment. And especially if we think of it in relationship with the way we feel like God has missed appointments that we had expectations for him to show up in.
Right.
And so, yeah, so I'm actually kind of thankful right now that happened yesterday, but yesterday I was really mad about it. But it just kind of helps me to get perspective, and to realize, wow, these are deep. Like, I was so hurt by it that I didn't even want to see him again. It's like I was just like, you know what, that's it. I'm not gonna even try. I'm not gonna even try to call him and make another appointment. I'm not gonna even try. I'm just gonna wait until he finally, misses me. So there was just an kind of edgy anger, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Anne, because so many times the emotions that we experience with this, the fear, the hurt, the rejection, we'll just put that up, the abandonment, what? Hurt, rejection.
Yeah, and then even like the personal, I had like a personal feeling like, oh my gosh, if I had just gotten in the car right away and just went right away instead of, doing that last thing,